everyone, I'm Tanishka. You might know me as the Moon Woman, and I'm here with a very dear woman.
Hello.
This woman crossed my path in, I think it was March this year. This is Natalie Lejeune. Natalie is an osteo, short for osteopath, but she's not a regular run-of-the-mill osteopath, far from it. She specializes in urogenital osteopathy, and my osteo back home in Australia had never even heard of this. It is an incredible technique that I recommend for every single woman on the planet to know about, because it really addresses all the issues with our sacral, so our womb area. You know, if you've got any sort of menstrual pain or, you know, PMS, polycystic ovaries, any unexplained infertility issues, if you feel like you've got sort of pelvic instability, which I had and didn't realize, if you've had a car accident or a fall, if you find sex painful, if you suffer from incontinence or cystitis, stick around and listen to this incredible woman speak. She is a master healer. I've called her the body whisperer because when she works on my body, she is literally communing with and talking to the cells, right?
That's
so
what we have to do.
You do, don't you? Like,
of course.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah,
I've never experienced that before.
The osteopathy that I'm doing is listening to the tissue, because as Andrew Taylor Still said, he's the founder of osteopathy 2 centuries ago, and he said that we have to listen to the tissue because only the tissue know. And it's true. That means that we do not give or do not do better.
Impose on the body, yeah.
Exactly. We're not imposing anything. We're listening, dealing with the tissue and trying to find the best way for them to free by themselves to go back to their own track, okay? So that's why we're not imposing any direction, not telling that's the right direction instead of these one. We just deal with the tissue to help them to free, because the body is very well done, and we have the toolkit also
within
to take, yes, the hands. Everywhere in the body you can put a hand, a finger to touch, to feel, and to help. Everywhere, every area. Okay.
So for self-healing, you'd recommend women are putting their own hands on themselves regularly and attuning to the body?
No, because it's a training of the hand that you have to do in osteopathy to know exactly where you have to put the hand, to listen to the tissue, what kind of tissue, at what depth also in the body. Is it superficial? Is it a little bit deeper? Or is it really deep when it's different when you are dealing with the skin, with the derm, that when you are dealing, for instance, with suspensory ligament of the ovary, or with the liver itself, or if you are working on the intestine, or if you are working along an artery to help the blood circulation to flush better, and also to enhance this blood circulation for a better movement and for also a better way for the hormones to spread everywhere and to reach the goal they have to reach, for instance.
I have a question. May I interject for a second? When you talk about perceiving, like with your subtle senses, your sentient self, the depth of where the tissues or the ligaments are holding pain, is it a case where the deeper the emotional pain, the trauma that's being stored in the body, the deeper, the more, is it the, you know, the sort of the organs and the deeper parts of the body are holding that, and that the closer you get to the dermis, the skin, is that, I don't know.
Depend of what kind of trauma you have been involved in. That's very, for instance, when you have an accident, it's a big trauma. You have collision forces going through your body. Some of them are going to be stuck in your body at different depth that you cannot calculate it, okay? So it's really research you have to do. And the complaint of the patient will help you to find out what's going on. The history and the complaints will help you to build a diagnosis and to help you to know where to go and what to do. That's very important.
So lovely. So you're listening not just to the cells, but also to the person who's saying, I have this and this and
yes.
this.
And by the knowledge we have, the training we have in osteopathy, that's 6 years training, okay, at least
Wow.
to start with, you can say. And you're, technically you are learning all your life.
Of course, always. Yeah.
But this knowledge will help you to understand that that kind of pain can be related to that kind of organ, that kind of restriction of mobility, for instance, into the ribs, the articulation of the ribs, different kind of articulation. We have 152 articulation just for the rib cage. So it's a lot.
So that's supple movements, ranges of movement.
And all the rib cage is linked to the pleura. The pleura is the fascia, the bag containing the lungs and the heart also, you can say, okay?
So if there's been deep heartbreak.
So all the time, for instance, when you have the rib cage involved in something, so emotion, for instance, okay, and collision forces,
yes,
then all the time, this trauma will keep recorded into the pleura, and the pleura, by freezing in a way, you can say, will stop the movement and will impede the movement of the different articulation.
Interesting.
And when you have that kind of trouble, that articulation of the rib cage doesn't work or don't work, if it's including 3 or 4 different articulation in the same area, all the time the others are going to rebalance.
Compensate.
By compensation.
Right.
But the problem is when it's doing that, it's also taking a large toll on the blood circulation, meaning that your heart has to work harder because this area, the stuck area, doesn't balance correctly. So all the rest of the body has to rebalance for it.
Thank you.
So
and
that's why it's very important.
I had going on. Like I had no idea that I didn't have total range of movement in my ribs. And it was such deep, subtle work, but it just kept freeing and freeing and freeing. And I find now to do yoga, I have much more range of movement. So, you know, if you're someone that's going to yoga or Pilates or Qigong and you're like, geez, I'm not as flexible as these other people, the body, chances are it's holding some trauma that's actually preventing that. It's not just that you've rusted up due to, you know, your age.
So that's the problem also. So we are getting used to our trauma. We're getting used to be in restriction of mobility. So we don't feel it anymore because the brain is tricked, you can say. And all the time the body tries to rebalance. So that's why it's good to have
it becomes our normal.
Exactly. And abnormality become normality. It's normal not to be able to move your knee correctly. It's normal not to open your legs correctly. When you do yoga, it's because I'm not flexible. But maybe it's not normal at all. Maybe you didn't feel that you could have such a big difference between right and left, for instance. And if we're talking about the hips, if your hips are not opening, if you cannot do a good internal rotation, meaning that bending your knee, you cannot put your knee back on the ground, that's also implied that your pelvis area is really stuck. And the problem
so just to explain, if you're lying down and you've got your knees drawn up, if you can sort of move your legs apart and then bend one knee down so that the knee is right on the floor. If you can't do that,
that means your internal rotation is really blocked. And if it is, that means you don't have so much movement and glidings between all the organs into the pelvic area. And when it's not gliding, that means also that the blood circulation is congested. And when it's congested, the hormones can't flush correctly. So your ovaries, for instance, don't receive the right information coming from your hypophyse gland, going through your thyroid glands and going to your liver as well, but to the ovaries.
So for those in the West we call this the pituitary gland, which is the master gland that governs the endocrine system, the hormones. So the ovaries aren't getting the feedback if there's that restriction in there, so your hormones are going to go further out of balance. Would that be true?
Yes, and also you have a biofeedback, means that hypophyse, ovaries are working all the time. They are in touch all the time by biofeedback, by hormones, other hormones. So if the ovaries don't receive the message from the hypophyse, they will not send back also to the hypophyse, and they get lost of each other. So after that, you can have some trouble with ovulation. You have menstruation trouble. It takes, for instance, instead of 28 days, your cycle become longer, reaching sometime 40 days, or you have a lot of hemorrhagia also because the hormones are not balanced correctly. So there is a lot of reason that can explain all the menstruation trouble, and there is a lot of things we can do in osteopathy, also by some movement, to give you exercise to do to reestablish this cycle on a good track.
Now, I think this is key because, you know, I've been working with women for 22 years, and a lot of women say, oh, since I've done your red tank course, I've never had period pain. And I'm like, look, I'm happy for you, sister, but I was still suffering. And then I started seeing you, and, you know, I remember that first time you saw me, you went, your kidney's in the wrong place. And I'd had an accident, you know, nearly 30 years ago that had twisted my pelvis. And because I hadn't had whiplash up here, I didn't realize all of this was twisted. So all the ligaments and the internal as well as the external, everything had just been twisted and under tension for nearly 30 years. So this was contributing to extreme period pain. And yet when I'd have ultrasounds, they'd be like, no, there's no physical reason for it. So, and my osteo had never ever heard of urogenital osteopathy, and I'm so passionate that women don't suffer needlessly. So the reason that I asked to speak with Natalie today is she's heading to Australia, which is, you know, my home country, and she's going to be training women in exactly what she does, so that women are supported through pregnancy, postnatally, through you know, their menstruation, and just to have stable pelvic health. You know, this is it's our base, it's our ability where we move from, and if that's unstable, my understanding is that the sacral is Aphrodite. So then emotionally, when the physicality is out, the hormones are out, and then we end up feeling hysterical a lot of the time.
I know that by myself. I've been through a lot of pain myself, so it's not at random that I choose to do what I'm doing today and to go really to the core of the things, because I've been suffering myself when I started my period. I had 3 children. It has been a dreadful time every time, different ways, but I've been undergoing a lot of things by myself. So I think it's very unjust to be so much impeded by all of this, and we really deserve to have a better life also.
True.
And it's so easy to help. I don't say that we are going to heal everything. That's not at all what I'm saying. But there is a lot of things that gynae don't take in account.
That's gynecologists.
Don't really look at, because they are focused on other things, more important things, we can say. Because if we're dealing with cysts or cancer, or
so crisis care is their specialty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's quite different. Okay, we are not gynecologists at all. It's not what I mean. But the knowledge we have in osteopathy when we are trained in urogenital, the knowledge that I am transmitting to the osteopath, physio, and midwives, specifically in Australia, it's very important to relieve pains in the daily life, and very often it's enough. And also, it contributes to help in case of infertility. You know, when some women are diagnosed infertile and there is no explanation for it, very often in osteopathy we can help. Not telling we are doing all the time miracle, but we can provide some help. And this is important, I think.
Oh, it's huge, because
it can
the
be
rates
huge.
of infertility
It can be, yes, exactly, because you can be very desperate because of that. And sometimes we find explanation. So that's why.
I just know from my personal experience, the period pain I've had since seeing you has dropped radically. And, you know, when I was seeing doctors, it was just take
Pills.
more and more drugs.
Yeah, and hormones. So when you take hormones more than you have, because anytime you take hormones, be aware that your hormone system is still at work. And that means you are increasing the level of hormones into your body. So at some point, it doesn't help. So that's why you need to be aware of that as well.
Just, okay, the dogs are meeting each other. Hi, Digo, it's okay.
The big one is afraid of the small one. Okay, never mind.
They'll work it out.
Okay.
So can we just address some specific issues that some of the women watching might have? So
yes, I would like to give you more example, for instance.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you've had a C-section, so if you've delivered a baby via cesarean, what would you recommend?
So I will go back before the C-section, before the birth. During pregnancy, it's always a good thing to see someone specialist in urogenital because we need to set up the pelvis, because sometimes C-section is also because the pelvis was in balance. You had a big fall on your pelvis when you were a kid, for instance, or a teenager, just falling from a chair. That's more like this, you know. That kind of things, or bumping on the floor, or a skiing accident, or car accident as well. You know,
gymnastics.
Exactly, and exactly, and not going to fracture. It's not even that, but you know, just a bad fall that can impede a lot the natural balance of your pelvis, and you are not aware of it. Okay, so everybody's focused on coccyx. So I heard so many times in my life, would you mind to put my coccyx back? Or I had a C-section because my coccyx was on the way. So first, coccyx doesn't go on the way, and
what
you don't.
But on the way, I'm not following.
Because the coccyx is too curved. And can't move back. So first, the movement of the coccyx is not exactly a swing, you know. It's very small movement, but it's always because the ligamentary system of the pelvis, the ligamentary system on the coccyx. I can show you something about that if you want. There. You see all the blue lines here. That's the ligamentary system, because bones by themselves don't mean anything. The smart system is the ligamentary system, because the pelvis, and specifically the female pelvis, is full of ligament, highly responding to the hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So that's very important to know. So
do they tense up and relax according to the time of the month?
And the time when you are pregnant, because they are going to lose. Also, to broaden the pelvis, to help the baby to go through, because the goal is to make it through the pelvis. Okay, so that's why these ligaments are so highly responding to hormones. Okay, relaxing hormones is the one secreted when you are pregnant to help all the ligamentary system of the pelvis to relax.
Oxytocin?
No, it's relaxing hormones. That's why many women also are complaining during a pregnancy that they have some pain and they have hyperlaxity into the ligaments. It's made on purpose to help the pelvis to gain space And if you know how to work, that's why we have to listen to the tissue as an osteopath, because we do not know better than the body.
Yeah.
You can work on the ligament, and you can help the pelvis to open and to gain about 1 centimeter. And 1 centimeter makes the difference sometimes between a C-section and a natural birth.
Wow.
I'm not telling you that all the time, because you've seen. No, but I want to make it clear to our audience, okay?
Sure.
We are not miracle makers, but we do help.
It minimizes the risk.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly. So that's an example of how to work, okay?
Love it. Yeah.
So, and also to set up the pelvis and to help during the pregnancy, to make it more comfortable, to help to have a better blood circulation to the uterus, because this uterus has to work during the labor and will work a lot. So it's a red muscle, just like your biceps or shins, for instance. So these muscles need oxygen. So it needs to have a good blood circulation to help during all the labor. And labor can take a lot of time, as we know.
Would that reduce the risk of varicose veins and hemorrhoids?
No, that's a different thing.
Okay.
So this is different things. We work on this, but it's different. Okay. So we can work even when you have hemorrhoids, we can work on this, but it's a different vascularization, you can say. Okay.
Thank you.
Different pipes.
All right, different pipes, good. What about women that have severe have you finished speaking with the...
No, I wanted to go through, so after birth, after a long labor, all the time the kidneys will be involved. And one thing also we have to know is the vascularization of the kidneys are different from the right than from the left. And the kidneys also, the vascularization give birth to the vascularization of the left ovary and the left testes.
What is vascularization?
Vascularization
for me
is
and the medical people watching this. Thank you.
Vascularization is
blood flow.
The blood flow. Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
So,
and kidneys do what? Do they? I thought they regulated the water.
The kidneys. The function of the kidneys is one thing. The mechanic of the kidneys is another thing.
Oh.
In embryology, the kidneys are coming from the pelvis. They are lifting and they are turning a 90-degree rotation to face each other. Okay?
That's a nice
during the 7th week and the 9th weeks, yes, as fetal life. Yeah.
Wow.
Even before being a fetus. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah. So very early stage, the kidneys are rising from the pelvis, lifting and turning. So it means they still have the memory where they come from. So that's why when you have an accident, when you are involved in a car accident, when you have a big fall from a roof, from a tree, on your back or on your belly also, all the time the kidney will be hurt. Not as organ by themselves. I mean, the function can still be okay, no blood in the urines, nothing like this. But the ligamentary system that holding them and their movement will be altered all the time. So that's also a good thing to have a checkup with an osteopath. When you are pregnant, at the very beginning of the pregnancy, even better when you intend to be pregnant, because it will be easier to work on your body, to check if your kidneys are on the right position. Because on the left kidney, you have a vein. This vein is coming from the vena cava and going to the kidney. That's the renal pedicle, we call it. And from this vein, you have another one going down. And this vein is going directly to the ovary, draining out the blood from the ovary. Okay? And also into the testes. It's the same. Okay, it's a spermatic or ovary vein. And this is completely dependent of the way your kidney will be working and moving. So if your kidney is not working, it's going to be twisted. And this, we know it in osteopathy. And we know that it can explain also the reason of cysts or the reason of fibrosis.
Fibroids, yep.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're doing great. It's her fourth language, English. Yeah, so keep going.
So that's the reason why we need to investigate the kidneys, but once more, not in their function, but more in their position and localization. Okay?
Where they're hanging.
Exactly, where they are hanging. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
which you could tell looking at me in an instant. Oh,
yeah,
your left kidney's in the wrong place.
Yeah, but this will,
because
it's very easy.
Got such an extensive experience as
this we know, so that's why we know where to work, and also by the past history of the patient, we know already where we have to look at. But when you undergo also a surgery, and I'll remind you that C-section is a surgery, a real one too, okay? So when you have C-section, when you have a long labor, to stay in the area of pregnancy, your kidneys, and specifically the left one, will still have to be investigated, because you can be sure that this kidney will get low. That's the way it is. So to improve the blood, push down, really going back, trying to go back to the pelvis, really. Okay. So that's why it's good to have that kind of investigation.
So have a postnatal checkup, even if you've had a regular birth, but you've had a long birth.
Yeah.
Or a C-section, to make sure that your left kidney is supported to be in the right place.
Yeah, because kidneys are moving up and down. They do about 600 meters a day. They walk, you can say, up and down, climbing 600 meters a day by the action of the diaphragm. So imagine when you are pushing, you hold your breath and you push and you push and you push. And if ever your midwife is pushing on your belly at the same time, be sure that these poor kidneys are going to be squeezed. So they will not enjoy it, okay? The other thing is small intestine. Small intestine is staying in, really sitting on the uterus. So small intestine is full of blood, and mainly venal blood. So it's congested very easily. And this blood can be very heavy. So it's a lake of blood standing on your uterus, and it's squeezing the uterus. So that can explain also some pain. And this has to be investigated. Not in the labor. You can't access anything after 5 months.
So
but
when would women,
after birth,
postnatal,
and before being pregnant,
if they're feeling womb pain?
No, it's in general. That's the kind of things you need to investigate before doing any kind of investigation into the pelvic organs, because this key organ, kidneys and small intestine, has to be investigated too, because they are part of this area.
Yes.
They have they are going to impact.
Okay, so you establish, ideally before pregnancy, whether or not you've got a healthy position of your left kidney, whether or not your intestines are being squashed, and whether or not you've got pelvic stability. And I mean, knowing those things, my goodness, if I had known to have a checkup with a urogenital osteo, the birth would have been a very different story with my daughter. And I think for so many sisters around the planet, we're told the horror stories of birth, so we think, oh, well, it's meant to be this excruciating. But so much of it is because
you have different factors, but it's true that when you can give already a lot of helps, and you can just clear the way as much as possible, you can make things easier. And that's the interesting thing.
Because there's so much pressure on women to have a natural birth.
Yeah.
And if this area is compromised,
the problem, I think it's better
beyond.
sometime, my opinion, by experience, and also because I've been through C-section myself. For the third one, I was able to give birth to the 2 first one, but the third one turned out to be breech and has to have a C-section because my pelvis was not balanced correctly.
There we go.
So that's why.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a checkup before being pregnant to be sure that your pelvis will be realigned, that your symphysis, for instance, we have a disc in the middle. You see here? Yeah, I'm going to picture of this right there. I'm going to show you right here. Here we have a disc, okay? Mm-hmm. And this means that it's moving. So your two branches are doing that kind of movement. I'm exaggerating a lot, but that's the movement we're expecting when we are walking. Okay. After any kind of accident, hormone imbalance, surgery, traumatic shock, including emotional shock, your disc, as the vertebral disc, are going to dry. And when they are drying, they are going to stay in the position they were. So, for instance, if you had a little twist like this into your pelvis, yes, it will stay. So you will ask your hips, for instance, to do all the job. They can rebalance. Just like it works, just like we say in introduction, you know, about the rib cage. All the rest of the body in the area will try to rebalance what's going wrong in a small piece of the area, okay? All the time. But after a while,
compensations that create chronic conditions.
But it takes a big toll after a while, you know?
Yeah.
And you can, for instance, have bladder issue just because this disc is not gliding anymore and it's not working anymore. So that's why it's interesting.
And that can be addressed with urogenital osteopathy.
Yeah, we can rehydrate them, of course.
Rehydrate them.
Yeah, it's really rehydrate because it's really hydrophil. It's highly hydrophil. And
you want to be a juicy woman in lots of ways.
If it can help, why not? Yeah, but it works exactly the same for the disc of your vertebra, you know? That's exactly the same process. Exactly, yeah.
How interesting.
They are very hydrophil. So, yeah.
Would that reduce arthritis later in life?
It's also genetic. It's also, Okay. It's also genetic. So you have many components in that. But, you know, someone healthy, young, complaining of the back, for instance, sometimes it's only because the disc is squeezed and get dry. So by rehydrating that disc, you can help a lot.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. That's good.
So to go back to the C-section, what I wanted to say is sometimes it's better to have a C-section instead of 40 hours labor. Because when you have 40 hours labor, for those who have been through that, they will understand what I'm telling them. Okay, you're a badass, you give birth, that's great. But your body is really in bad condition after that. And sometimes a C-section is a better issue and a better deal because if you have also to think about the child. And for the child, being compressed like this during 40 hours doesn't help. So that's why it's good to have a checkup also for the child after birth.
That's pretty radical. Okay? I'm like, yeah, okay. Because I've been very sort of like, oh God, the number of women having C-sections is like,
yeah, but we should keep in mind that I know that in my case, for instance, that I wanted to have this home birth absolutely at any rate, like everybody. Because for us women, giving birth is the big exam we have in life. We can have all the diploma. We can have all the high position in the food chain you want, whatever you want. The big exam and the only exam we have is to give birth. That's the big one for us. As soon as you're pregnant, you feel that will be your big exam. So that's why we want absolutely to success. But sometimes we have to keep in mind we cannot success at any rate. And we have to also to keep in mind that for the baby, it's not a really comfortable situation because if it's not for you, you can imagine for the baby. So once more, I am not telling you that C-section are the best solution, but when it's suggested to have a C-section, you have to consider that maybe it can be the best for you and for your child. So that's all I wanted to say. And also, the obstetrician is the only one to take the right decision at the right moment with your midwife. because that's their job and nobody else. So just to keep this in mind also. So to go back to C-section in osteopathy, one thing also, we know that we have to work after the C-section on this small intestine, as I say, because it's sitting on the uterus, and the uterus has been moved, has been open, has been traumatized. So that's why it's also very interesting and very important to have the checkup on your kidney, the checkup on your small intestine, and also have a look on the gallbladder and the liver, because they work together. Because when you have an opening in the pelvis area or even in the visceral area, the gallbladder may suffer of that. So we are not going to go through it, but just an indication. When after a C-section or hysterectomy, it's the same in a way, it will have the same side effect. You have some trouble with the gallbladder. There is an explanation by the surgery. What kind
of symptoms would that be when you say trouble?
Trouble is mud. The first step is mud or incapacity to digest very well fat. You avoid to have fat, or you don't feel comfortable with alcohol, fat, or freaking also.
Would you get tummy pain? Would you get burning?
It's more about headaches, for instance, more about the temporal side, this area, because that's the meridian of the gallbladder. Okay,
thanks.
Very frequent headache. It's not migraine. Migraine, it's different. Also, very different. Okay.
So if you have trouble digesting fats,
and you don't stand fat,
food,
and
wine.
pain in the area right there. I'll show you in this area. Okay, pain here. That's where you have the gallbladder. Okay. So this is a side effect of C-section also, that we have to take into account as osteopath, because we know it, okay?
But it can be corrected quite easily?
We can help, yes, of course we can help. Well,
so you may not end up with your gallbladder coming out, for instance.
No, but I mean, if your gallbladder is full of rocks,
gallstones,
you need to take them out, okay? This we can't do, because it's not advised to take the risk to have a rock squeezing and
through a small tube.
Yes, the choledoc is very small, so it's not a good idea. But when it's still muddy and doesn't work, or lazy gallbladder, this we can help. Yes, of course we can help.
So if someone had a muddy gallbladder, how would that?
Oh, well, it's diagnosed by ultrasound.
Oh, okay. So that's something you'd pick up on.
Yeah. You know it. Okay.
All right. So what about
PMS, for instance?
Yeah, look, that's I know a big one.
A lot of us go through PMS at some point of our life. So the PMS syndrome is an unsettled hormone balance, okay? So that's where it's very important to work on the ligamentary system of the pelvis, as we say, because it's highly responding and highly linked to the hormones. To work also...
Is that internal or external?
No, it's external. Okay. The ligamentary system, you work on it mainly externally. Okay. Internally, you will work on the cervix, because the cervix of the uterus is really linked also, and it's a very good thing working on the on this cervix to reset the hormonal system.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So you can do that directly working on the cervix.
By working on the cervix, but not only. I would say that working on the pelvis is the last step in your work as osteopath for a consultation, someone having trouble like this. The internal work will come really at last. At first, you have to set up.
So you won't end up with a rubber glove in you straight away, everyone.
No, first you have to work on the ligamentary system. You have to work also on the nerves, the plexus, sacral plexus, so the nerves coming from the sacrum.
And a plexus is where lots of nerves meet, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is where all the nerves in your sacral have a junction.
And that's where you have all the innervation and the autonomic system. So it means sympathetic, and orthosympathetic system, the one you do not control, okay?
Yeah.
So because on PMS you have unbalanced autonomic system, so that's why you need to work on it also. That's very important. And where you have a fall,
so that would really heighten anxiety and
yes, and it helps to set up also your mood.
Emotions.
Yes, and it helps also to set up the mood and not to be so moody at this time, so depressed, so sad or whatever,
so not as much pronounced highs and lows emotionally.
Yeah. So that's one of the second thing. The third thing is the vascular system. So arteries, vein, lymphatic system. Because as we are bipodal, so working on 2 feet only, we are undergoing the gravity much more. And the gravity is very, very heavy if you go down into the pelvic area. So the organs of the pelvic area have a lot of gravity and they encounter a lot of pressure. And when you have too much pressure, it's really squeezing the vascularization of this area, and the blood cannot flow correctly. And if the blood cannot flow correctly, then the organs lose the track with hormones, lose the track with oxygen, and they don't work correctly anymore. So that's why we cannot ask you to walk on your fours. Of course, I understand. I don't do it either. But that's why we need to have some help. And that's where it's interesting again to work on the kidney and to work on the small intestine as well. Even if you don't have any trouble with your small intestine, it's not linked to the function. It's linked to the mechanical aspect of the disposition of the organs.
If we have all this gravity, compacting the pelvic region, is it therefore a good idea to do inversion yogic stands or just put your legs up a wall on a regular basis?
That's where it's important to work on the internal rotation of your hips. That's very important because it will help also to have a real deep relaxation on the ligamentary system, on the muscles inside.
Okay.
Very deep.
So as well as putting the knee inward,
yes,
as we said before, what about sitting in lotus, like cross-legged and opening
cross-leg
the hips?
is external rotation.
Yes.
So
should we try for both?
Yes, you have to balance the two of them. But we are already very often more in external rotation
than we are on the inward.
Than we are in the internal rotation.
Okay.
That's why it's very, very seldom that teachers in yoga teach you how to work on your internal rotation.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's not something I've
and that's why that's why
so to do both every day would be good.
Would be very good.
So to have your knees out and your knees fully in.
But you can find it, you can find the things about that internal rotation. It's easy to find.
But it also sounds like it would just be good self-care for any woman of any age to have a consult just to get that whole region checked. Well,
it depends on what you have. For instance, also one thing we regularly see is incontinence, women with incontinence.
When you sneeze or you cough and you need to do a wee.
That's the stress incontinence, when normally you can hold your urines, but if you have something happening that it was not expected, like sneezing or that kind of things, coughing, or after a long time coughing also, you start to feel that you are peeing on yourself. Sometimes losing a few drops only, but you're still being able to control and hold it, okay? That's the stress incontinence. So that means your bladder is undergoing a lot of pressure. And the pressure has different factors. So it can be linked, for instance, for surgery or many birth, natural birth. Can be C-section as well.
So they can all contribute to the weakening of that.
And this can contribute a lot. You can be involved in an accident and car accident, but you didn't have, oh my God, I didn't have anything. No, but you have the collision forces going through your body.
Shock waves.
Some of them,
Yeah.
as shock waves, are going to stay stuck in your body. Those are going to just cross your bodies. It's all right with them. But those who are going to stay, they are still really impeding your body, you can say, really. So that's why it's good to see and to investigate many things for an incontinence. It's not only to work on the pelvis. You need to have the past history. You need to understand how this had happened. And also, as it's about pressure, because as we said, the pelvis is undergoing a lot of pressure by its position at the bottom of the body, we need also to investigate the rib cage, because if you have any restriction of mobility in the rib cage, you will increase the pressure. As the lowest you go, the lowest the pressure will be. Okay. So that's why we need to investigate all of this to really rebalance the pressure into the body. So
looking at the whole body, so not like Western, which is allopathic, just looking at one area. We look at how one affects the other.
Yes, and that's very important. So that's why being able to work on the pelvis area is not only to work into the pelvis. It's not because you are going to fidget around the urethra or the bladder that you are going to stop the incontinence. You need to have many factors to consider to really be sure that you can help and at which point you can help.
I think that's great, because for women that are, that have maybe had 4 kids, and with each one successively, there's a bit more of the weakening in that area, to think, oh God,
absolutely,
it's, something that they've just got to literally suck it up and do some pelvic floor exercises, but to know that there's more support
pelvic floor
available.
Exercise when you have bladder that it's stuck for any reason. Also infection, because for the moment we haven't been through infection.
Oh, like cystitis?
Cystitis, also
when it burns to weep.
Yeah, burns, but also when you have infection into the intestine, or big inflammation as a kid. The people as kid that were complaining all the time of their tummy, they have tummy
aches,
that kind of things. This is not without reason, and this will give some scar tissue. The body will remember that all its life, because the small intestine works at a second brain, and you really have neurons working as a brain into the intestine. So that's why the intestine has to be very, very considerate and highly reconsiderate when we do treatment. And we have to talk to it and I said it on purpose, to talk to it, okay? That means we're
acknowledging it as an entity.
Exactly. That's very important, okay? So every kind of
respectful.
We have to. After what I said all the time, I remind it all the time to my student. It's not your body; it's the other's body. So you have to be more respectful than any way, because you're working on somebody else's body.
Yeah.
So you have to be respectful, of course. Do whatever with yours, but you have to be respectful for the others.
Yeah.
Because they are trusting you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
a
great honor
only
to be
about that.
to touch someone else's
of course,
body. Yes.
Yeah. So that's why. Okay. And as I say, any kind of infection will give scar tissue. It's not only surgery, but infection gives also give all the time restriction of gliding, restriction of mobility into the tissue. So the tissue keep a bad position, you can say. They are not on the right direction. So at every level of tissue, depending on what kind of infection. So any bladder infection, urinary tract infection, all the time, it will give some restriction of mobility. The ureters, for instance, if you had infection, if you had kidney stones, that will give scar tissue as well. So that means restriction of mobility. So we need to work on this as well to improve.
So do you use internal massage on the scar tissue? How do you?
No, because the scar tissue, it's not, it's just like an iceberg. It's not the visible part that is important.
Okay.
It's the 9th, 10th%
Sure.
you have inside.
Okay.
That's where you need to really deal with the tissue, to understand, to feel them, to really see how they work, okay, where direction they want to go, where they are stuck, and to really work with them,
so
not on them.
I love it. It's like it's a real midwife, which means with woman. So you're really working with that scar tissue and listening to where it wants to go, so that you're supporting it to heal itself by creating the right conditions.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
Okay. So when we work to free an organ, it's not to work on the organ itself. It doesn't make sense. It's to work to the fascia, to work on the ligamentary system, to work on the vascular system. That's
everything
the three main thing. Yes.
And supporting it.
Because that's where you have the connective tissue. That means these connective tissue are linked to the brain and give the information as feedback to the brain. And the brain, when you have, for instance, an accident and you break your knee, for instance, okay? You break your knee. All the ligamentary system of the knee will be cut off completely of the brain, because the brain will consider that this leg doesn't go correctly. So all the information brought back by the ligamentary system about the way the ground is, if it's unstable, if you have pebbles, or if it's smooth, if it's sandy, it's for you to adapt the way you are going to walk. All the information from this broken leg, even a long time after, you know, will not be considered by the brain. So for your brain, only the other leg is good. So that's why sometime after any kind of accident, broken limbs, lower limbs, you feel still unsteady. You can't really trust your body, okay? It's because the ligamentary system has not been relinked to the brain. So that's why it's important sometimes to see an osteopath just for that, just to reconnect, really replug everything.
That's great, into the mainframe.
Yeah, because yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Because
now, you are going to be training people, and I mean, you know, you're a wise woman, you're a master healer, and you're someone that has all this knowledge, and we need it disseminated. We need as many others to be, you know, receive this, so that then more and more people aren't suffering needlessly. So you only, because it's a specialist medical area, you only train people that have the medical.
So what I do, I'm training osteopath, midwives, and physio, because they are the therapists first, because they have the knowledge, they have the manual ability, because it's about manual ability, okay? And once more, it's not only to work into the vagina that will help. It's not that. It's all the comprehension of the body. You have to understand how the body works and how the links are working between together. So that's why I'm training only osteo, midwives, and physio.
Okay, so not doulas and not, you know, people
I'm training, doula. I have a special training for the doulas.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, good to know, because I'm sure a lot of women, what about those that have, say, trained in yoni mapping? Would they be included in the doula training?
By experience, because I've been at the beginning, they have joined, some of them have joined the training, but they don't have the knowledge and
so the anatomical foundations to be able to take on this level of.
Yes. And as I said and I explained, when you work on the cervix, you have a big effect on the hormonal system. So it's not exactly a toy. A cervix is not a toy. And
get that on a t-shirt.
Yes. And when you work on this, you have to be aware of exactly
all the ramifications
what you are doing.
Okay.
And once more, on a consultation of 1 hour consultation. If sometimes you work in by vaginal route, it's going to take 5 minutes. You're not going to spend hours or a long time into the vagina, because it's not meant to be, because that's not how you are going to correct things. You need to work on the body. So the yoni massage people, from my understanding, by my experience, they don't have the body understanding and the different links. So I've tried to exchange with them, but unfortunately they are very concentrated on the vagina. So okay, it's okay for me, but I mean, no, they're not part of the training.
Okay, so the prerequisite for doing urogenital osteopathy with you in Melbourne, Brisbane and Hobart. Can you just tell us when you'll be in those cities?
Yes, I'll be in Melbourne in September, the end of September and all October. I'll be in Brisbane in November, and I'll be all November, and I'll be in Hobart the 2 first week of December as well.
So,
and I will do training. So for the osteopath, it will be in Melbourne. I have 2 trainings, level 1 and level 2 for the osteopath. Midwife, normally it's in Brisbane, more specifically. And so physio and osteo in Melbourne for level 1 and level 2. So 2 different trainings. In Brisbane, it will be midwife level 1 and level 2 also. And I'm going to see about the doula, because I had demands about doula, so we are going to see where we are going to squeeze it.
Yeah, I'm sure there would be a big demand.
And for Hobart, it's a mixed osteo, physio, and midwife training that I'm doing in Hobart. Yeah, because Hobart is in Tasmania, so they want me to come, and it was difficult to do 4 different trainings, so that's why we do a mix, and we'll do it differently than usual.
So if people want to find out about that, or, you know, if you see an osteo or a physio on a regular basis, you know, I mean, I was seeing an osteo every month back home, but it didn't address this stuff. You know, he'd never heard of this. And so if you are seeing a physio or an osteo, or if you have the same midwife that, you know, helped you birth a few of your babies, you might want to share this video, or at least the Facebook page link for this training, which I've put in the post for this live video. So you can copy and paste that and share it, just so that we can get this type of deep, it's intimate work, but it's so necessary. I mean, it's taboo even to talk about. I know the first time I went to you and I ended up with a rubber glove up both ends. But by God, by the end of it, I put my feet on the earth and I went, that's the most stable that I've felt in over 30 years, you know?
Yeah, because, you know, it's foundation. Working on the body will help you to get back on your feet, as you say. And then after, you can rebalance your chakra. You can do your meditation. You can do a lot of things, because you are...
Yeah, the physicality is there.
Grounded. And you're back in your body. And do not forget that it's only by our body that we can feel the world around you, around us. Okay, we have 5 senses, physical senses, and I say meaningfully 5 physical senses. Okay, touching, vision, hearing, smelling, and
touch,
gust also. So that's how we can apprehend the world. And if they are going wrong, if the hormonal system that we have is making things wrong, the feeling of the world we have, the vision of the world we have will be wrong as well.
Would that then lead people to feel unsafe in the world?
Because you can be unsafe, you can be depressed, you can feel alone when you are not, you can feel a burden when finally just lifting things in your body can help you, moving the blood, really creating a tide in your body. I give exercise for the PMS, for instance, that really move the blood and really create the tide into your body, and that lifts a lot of things, and you feel so light after, you know, and so you have another perception of life, you have another vision of life. So that's why it's important to go back to the foundation. It's important to be well in our body if we want to have a better life. That's how it starts.
I love that. Thank you. Really. Because I think, you know, especially with my audience, they're, you know, often reflections of me, which is, you know, a lot of trauma in the early life, which then the gift in that is you open up the subtle senses. And so, but it can be very painful to be here in the physical realm, you know. And so when you find somebody that can really help your physical body to release the trauma that it's held, so you can feel like, yeah, I can be here in the physical world, it's such a gift. So I just want to share it with everybody. So do check out Natalie's Facebook page. The link is in the post. And if people have questions, they can just, as a follow-up, ask questions on the Facebook page, can they?
Oh, yeah, they can. Yes,
okay,
yes.
Great.
Yeah. You have the messenger. You can send me a message. Yes.
Okay, beautiful. And also, if they wanted to inquire about seeing you for a private session, can they post?
That will be difficult.
Okay. You're training the trainers more so.
Yes,
okay.
That can be difficult, but we'll see. We'll see what I can do.
All right. Okay. Well, you know how to contact her.
I can refer them to some osteopath also I have already trained.
Brilliant.
Mainly this, we can do that. Okay.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Tanishka.
Oh, bless you. Oh, and I love your dirty laugh. And for a woman that's dealing with bloody base root chakra, we've both got a lot of base energy. When we were getting ready for this video, Natalie was trying to get the pronunciation of words in English. It just sounded, I mean, the words, it was all, you know, just, you know, very base root. It was great. So thanks those of you that joined us live. If you found this insightful, if you feel to share this with women that have birthed, that have menstrual pain, that have had a car accident, that have, you know, incontinence issues, that, yeah, I mean, my God, yeah, just let them know.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Hand. Okay.
Goodbye.
Ciao.
Bye.